dark. I'm learning this new community. It is. I was going out to Dartmouth Crossing. I started out on Ochterlony, I think that's how you pronounce it. And I was going to go all the way out to the highway. And all of a sudden I was on Prince Albert. So I thought, where am I? So I quickly turned left, found Ochterlony, and made my way to my outing, to my location. And on the way back, I said, I'm just going to go out to Prince Albert and come all the way in using that road. Well, I found myself on woodland. I'm not sure how that happened. Straying off course. It can create a sense of disorientation. A couple of you know we've talked about sailing, and I'm a sailor. And what we do when we landed on a beach or into a little cove somewhere is we drop anchor. And when you drop it, you're swinging around, the wind's blowing you, but you're taking markings. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be here by that post and by that door. And then you look over, okay, at the exit sign, so I got my markings. And you wait, and you hope you don't drift anchor. And then you go down to heat up the tea, or the other beverages that you're cooling, and you come up, and you realize, oh no, the bottom wasn't as strong as I thought, it wasn't as rocky, we drifted anchor. And again, the feeling of disorientation and panic. How am I going to get us back in to the proper mooring place? Well, I bet you were also thinking, intern's first day, how is she going to preach on these texts? Because they're pretty challenging. We've got Luke dealing with the lost and the found, and Jesus having dinner with sinners. And we have this intimate confessional between a mentor, Paul, and his beloved mentee, Timothy. We don't actually read the scripture from 1 Timothy, but it's up here. It's hard to see. But one of the things I do when I'm working with texts is I take and I underline, and I color, and I circle, and I try to find words within it that give me a sense of what the text is trying to say. So I start there most often when I'm preparing sermons. And so what we see are the words grateful, strengthened me. He judged me faithful and appointed me to his service. This is Paul talking. I was formerly a blasphemer, a persecutor, and a man of violence. He's confessing. But I received mercy. And my unbelief with grace turned into belief and overflowed in me. Jesus, he says, came to the world to save sinners. God, he says, showed me the utmost patience, making me an example. So this is a letter of encouragement to Timothy. But, boy, it's really tough for me to read. Jesus came into the world to save sinners. A lot of the resources today gave me trouble. I saw a number of you not talk through some of the resources. I was watching the voices. There's a lot of themes. And I'm worrying about the assumption that you think this new person coming in is looking around and thinking that you're all a bunch of sinners. I'm not. You're really good people. But the lectionary has offered us this topic today and a collection of readings around this central theme. So let's explore. Earlier this week, I was at a morning service, and we had our Voices United out, and we were going through the morning service hymn, and the Lord's Prayer came up. how we traditionally say it. But it was odd for me that we were reading it, and nobody actually read the word. Made me think, what's going on here? I think Paul is really brave. Really brave to name his sins. He had a U-turn moment. It was so great that instead of persecuting people, his mission became a mission to the Gentiles, to what would be called the sinners, the people who did not follow the Jewish law that he'd been brought up with. He thought his mission was, because Jesus had come to him and made such a tremendous, graceful moment in his life, that he was to speak to that, to all who Jesus ate with, those lost sheep, or the lost coins, as Luke describes them. This is a map of Turkey and Greece. And this past spring, I went on a trip. It was a trip course with Acadia University, the Divinity College there. It was phenomenal because honestly, I love Jesus and I feel like I have a really close relationship with Jesus. But Paul, well, sometimes I could take him and sometimes I could just throw him. Some of the stuff he writes, I just sometimes don't feel is grace-filled. But the wonderful thing about this trip is it gave me an intentional 2-week time to get to know the guy a little more. We were taking a bus, and we drove thousands of kilometers. This man had feet. Not like those feet with the painted red toenails and the hair. Maybe. This is on the Via Egnatia, and this is a road that Paul actually would have traveled thousands of kilometers in sandals. The tenaciousness of doing this trip from Damascus area, up around to Cyprus and through Turkey and back. And then, again, I mean, we've got a lot of years that he's doing this in, right? But he goes through Turkey again, gets up to the edge of the world, and is about to go north, and is called to go into Greece, into Mesopotamia, along the Via Egnatia, and plants churches all through Greece, right down to Corinth, and then swings back to Jerusalem. And not only that time, he does it again. He does the same route, except he goes up and swings around the Baltic Sea there, and then comes back down. And then his last trip he takes all the way to Rome. Determined, tenacious, sure, a mentor, somebody we can learn from, somebody courageous enough to say, I was lost. Somebody willing to say in an intimate way to other believers, I fell down. It's appropriate today with our sacrament of baptism that we had. We had discussions yesterday, discussions about some of the words that we use, and the word sin is used within the baptism liturgy. And so I think it's work for the United Church to deconstruct that and to deconstruct the word sin when we relate it to an act of sacrament that includes infants. We know for sure as a United Church that infants don't start out sinful. They start out loved. And as God said, they start out grace-filled. And we rejoice in that love. They also have moment where we say, you are loved. But it's also a time for us to say, oh yeah, we were once sprinkled. Maybe we need to make a U-turn. Maybe we don't. But it's time for us to look at that and say, what does water do? Water cleanses. And how great is it to be in a community that offers us guidance, morals, virtues, in which we can live by, that help us in this world that is so fraught with choices. Witnessing this as adults and young adults, we're reminded that this love is a starting point. And it's more about us as we stray and feel lost. We have this opportunity for a U-turn in the community to support us. So we don't hear the word sinners very often in United Church. You are sinners. Sorry about that. But it's not sort of a Pentecostal thing that we start from there. We start from grace. We start from good. It's a United Church, maybe, way of protest. Protest against a theology that has not been helpful. But we must name it and not hide from it. Or we might get caught off guard and stray. I'm wearing something underneath this white gown. It was an act of protest this week. Something worried me in the news. Quebec's proposed Charter of Values. To me, it was a decision of politics that could lead to great division. Where is the value of coexisting in peace and respect? I worry as well because of the trip I took to Turkey. They take great pride in the fact that they are a secular state and that they are not run by religious organizations. Mind you, Constantinople has the most mosques in the world in one square place. But in getting to that secular state, we forget that the Armenian Christians on the border were killed. That there was a genocide there that was suppressed and not known about in order to get to the secular ideal. It worries me. And I'm truly grateful for the safety of expressing my faith, my failings, and how I can choose to follow Christ so that I might live a more virtuous and moral path in my life. Will we have to go back to being the type of people who take our toe and write or draw the sign of fish in the sand in order to make our faith known? Because that's what they used to do for fear of reprisal and being killed. And that's how you knew somebody who followed Jesus. The next generation, there's lots of you out here today. We've got lots of 20 and 30-year-olds in the audience. I'm speaking for you a bit here. But I think that most 20 and 30-year-olds believe in inclusion, deep, and acceptance of all people. They're passionate about changing the world. They're engaged in social justice. May not be through church always, but they are. And they value intellectual inquiry. They live, and we all do, in a pluralistic religious world where claims of exclusive paths to God can create strife and oppression at the very least, and terrorism at the extreme. They're looking for a living relationship with a living God and are suspicious of churchy language, such as sin, sinner, salvation. So, we need to re-examine the language that we use, to revitalize it, and maybe to reframe it in plain language, giving space for intimate and honest and raw sharing, like Paul did as a model, starting from the radical loving space of grace given and ready to be found. Enough of this culture of shame. There's enough of it. There's mounds and mantles of guilt on people's shoulders. Most of you, like I said before, try extremely hard to live a just and righteous life. Do you know the logo for Grace United? What's underneath your Grace United? Transforming lives. Thanks, Shirley. Grace United, transforming lives. It's about a U-turn, no? It's about freedom. While I'm here with you for 8 months, I'll be encouraging and holding up those missions and visions and value statements we developed many years ago. It'll help me figure out your map to travel with you. Your direction as a congregation seems pretty great. And I'll have to learn it better so that I might serve you well. And pull on all the good strengths that you have first. So, we can declare, no matter how far we wander, we are forever within love's reach. The source of love is everywhere and will seek us out whenever we lose our bearings. We affirm that Jesus revealed God's love to be extravagant in nature, giving himself courageously to its cause beyond any human judgment or religious tradition. And we know by experience that we come to know love through the grace of a spirited community, the unexpected kindness of strangers, healing word of a friend, and the intimate touch of a lover. In confession, we need it. It gives us space. It's a healing practice that we use to restore connection. It's a way of naming sin and the tears that are created by the terrors of creation's connectivity. Boy, that was a mouthful. Let's try it that way. That again. It was a way of naming the sin that tears at the fabric of creation's connectivity. Wham. Cheers. Having experienced the depth of love in our bones when we start out in baptism, we can give